Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Hancock, follow COVID rules or they will get tougher. How about, hey Hancock, follow what the public are asking for or you will lose your job. And hopefully, only your job. Because this kind of, it seems now, undemocratic, unelected ideas that they wish to just push forward is not at all what we were looking for. Not at all what you would want from a conservative government, which is for individual liberty. Not at all what you'd be hoping for as a response after seeing that one lockdown had failed, and not at all the response that you would want from a freedom-loving small states government seeing what the public response has been. And yet, that is what he has decided to go with. It seems yet again that echo chambers create such a terrible situation that they think that, oh, well, I think this, and all my friends think this, and we all think alike. That must mean that everybody in the entire country thinks the same as we do. Well, got news for you, Hancock. No, we don't. And we're sick to death of this. We will not accept a second lockdown. And the rules that you're putting in place are utterly preposterous. As they say, COVID restrictions in England will get tougher if rules are not followed, Matt Hancock has warned, as the government introduces £10,000 fines for people who fail to self-isolate. It's £1,000 for most cases, up to £10,000 for more severe cases. And that means that you've got to self-isolate for 14 days if you get a positive test result. And anybody that you've been in contact with recently from the NHS Trace and Contact Service will also get in touch with and say you've got to self-isolate for 14 days as well, even if you don't even have the virus. And if you don't, you'll face at least a £1,000 fine, if not more. But bear in mind that, yeah, of course, you can go tear down statues, protest war memorials, do all that good stuff, whatever you fucking want. But if you think, maybe the law should be applied equally, and we should actually be able to decide for ourselves if the risk is worth it, then no, you're going to get fined £10,000. Aren't you, Piers Corbyn? So it's these kind of things that make you think, well, seems to be taking liberties a bit much. This is not equal treatment under the law. This is bloody preposterous. And, it gets worse, because the idea of this, circuit breaker is just basically to say, we've got another lockdown, are you okay with it? Because if you are, we're going to extend it. If not, then we're going to ease back. And yeah, of course, there was support for it earlier in the year, when we didn't know what we were facing, and we thought, bloody hell, this might be another Spanish flu. We all better clam up and keep ourselves isolated in order to stay safe. Now we've seen that isn't the bloody case whatsoever. The NHS is not overburdened as we thought it would, having to have the Nightingale Hospital wing in London. That is just unnecessary and isn't the point whatsoever. And then you've got other deaths that have been caused, or at least they haven't been treated because they could have been avoided. So you've got avoidable deaths from the elective surgery, from the death panels, which is what they really are, but they call themselves elective surgeries for things like cancer and coronary heart disease, and they're not getting the screening that they need. And all they're focusing on what? Fewer than 1,000 people in the hospital with coronavirus at the moment. Really? That's it? That is it? Out of 67 million people? 1,000? And you're thinking closing the country down? Are you kidding me? It's fucking ridiculous. So, in the BBC interview, Hancock also says he would call the police on people who refuse to self-isolate. Except, of course, if he's patting someone on the back and congratulating them, then, it's okay, because it's only brief and it's okay when I do it. Great double standards there, Matt. Denied the government was overreacting given deaths and hospital admissions remain relatively low. What is your agenda then? And said there was still hope a vaccine would get over the line this year. Or if you're reliant on the Americans, yes, because that's where most of the medical innovation comes from, because they've got a profit incentive because more of theirs is private. Yes, I'm aware that they spend more per person on medicine over there than they do over here. So to try and say it's completely private is definitely false. But nonetheless, with a socialised health system that we have over here, then you got no chance of that innovation happening. And also bear in mind that part of the reason that we have such draconian measures is because of the socialised health service. Because you might say, well, hey, I want to make my own choices and I will expose myself to the virus. And if I get sick, then I'm going to deal with it and I'm going to take personal responsibility because it's me as an individual. At which point the government says, no, you're not, because you're covered by our health insurance. And then you might say, well, okay, I'd like some different health insurance that enables me to go outside during this so-called pandemic. And then they'll say, no, you're not allowed. You have to be under this health insurance. You have to pay into it, and you have to abide by these rules. Otherwise, you're going to be fined or imprisoned. Seems a bit too socialist for my liking. I guess having choice on your healthcare is just too much to ask. That being able to decide about your own health and lifestyle decisions is far too much to ask from a conservative government. What bullshit is this? And yet, of course, we have the worst draconian laws happening under a so-called conservative government, which is utter ridiculous. They've also got new measures also include a one-off £500 support payment for those on lower incomes, whatever that means, of lower income, and you've got to self-isolate for at least 2 weeks. So that is if you're earning, what, about £1,000 a month? Great. 500 quid. And a penalty for employers who punish those told to self-isolate, which seems to be the same of between £1,000 and £10,000. So, you're an individual, and like, well, I actually need a job in order to survive. Fuck you, you're going to get fined £1,000. Right, okay. Or you're an employer thinking, hey, I really need people to help out here because it's too much for one person to handle. So I really need people to do the work. And, if they can't, I want to be able to replace them. Fuck you. You're getting fined £10,000. Brilliant. Well done, Conservatives. Who the fuck are you actually looking out for at the end of this? Who is it? Is it just your elite friends that you're going to give kickbacks to? It beggars belief, really. What even is the intention behind this? Is it really just that short-sighted, or is it that corrupt? Which is it? Because this isn't making sense to the millions of people who have to actually deal with these lockdown measures. And as they say, more than 19,000 fines have been issued in England and Wales for alleged breaches of coronavirus laws, the Attorney General said earlier this week, but more than half have not been paid so far. Let's hope that none of them are, and let's hope that there is no further punishment for any of these people, because this is bloody ridiculous. And as well, Matt Hancock suggesting that you should call the police for people who flout these lockdown measures, as in for people who enjoy their individual freedom. It's bloody preposterous. And at the very least, Boris Johnson said that he would, try and talk to those people first. But bear in mind that, let's say you've got then Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock, and they're kind of neighbours, but there's someone in between them. So they're neighbours one apart. And that person in the middle then has a party and they invite 6 people around. Then Boris Johnson would go around to try and say, hey, you guys, are you aware that there are more than 6 people? So, be cautious because this is breaking the law. Meanwhile, Matt Hancock, the other side, would say, hey, there are those 6 people. Please come get even more people than 6 into this close area because these people are breaking the law. And, you're going to have to then detain Boris Johnson as well because he's now in that group as well. So, yeah, you try and do the gentle approach that Boris Johnson is suggesting, and then you're going to be inculcated from the more aggressive approach that Matt Hancock is suggesting. So it's all game theory at the end of the day, and it is utter horseshit. We do not want to go down the route that we've seen in Victoria and Australia. That is horrific. We've got a pregnant woman walking in a park thinking, I really need to sit down now because I'm several months pregnant, and then police coming over and saying, yeah, you can't sit there or we'll fine you. So are you bloody kidding? She's on her own, no one else is around, she's a heavily pregnant lady, and you're telling her to keep on walking. Do you understand what you're saying? No, I guess not, because, this coronavirus is more important than the pregnancies? Are you shitting me? And then, of course, you've got the tower blocks in Brisbane where people have just been locked in without really knowing about it until they try to leave and then going, yeah, you can't leave now. It's like, what? But I'd like to. I haven't done anything wrong. Yeah, but someone in your apartment block might have had the virus, and therefore everybody here has to be locked down. Right. Good to know. And then that's their life. So let's hope that we're not going as far as Australia, because they do seem to be taking it a little bit far. But as the analysis says, and it is actually a good point, that not only that self-isolation can be costly for some in terms of lost income and job security, even with the offer of £500 payments, especially if you're paying for more than one person, and that is something that tax should really take into account, but lol no, because it's done on individual instead of family, but then you've got pull tax and it goes against it, and it doesn't make any sense. But as they say, first of all, the messaging is confusing. 1 minute, the public is being told to eat out, to help out, and to get back into the office. Then they are being told to curb their mixing and not to gather in groups of more than 6. There is also a growing sense that the public is tiring of the battle to contain the virus with ever more draconian messages, which is completely correct. But yes, the idea that, oh, hang on, the government is doing things and has unforeseen consequences, and what they should really be doing is staying out of it because individuals can make the decisions better themselves. What a revolutionary thought! We've only thought this for near on 100 bloody years. Why hasn't this message got in yet? In fact, you've got the Depression in America, 1920-21, which you probably haven't heard much of, because what did the government do? They just went, let's just let them sort themselves out, it'll be fine. And it was, which is why you haven't heard about it. And then you got the Great Depression from 1928, which didn't solve itself till about 1946. What's the difference? Government intervention, either fixed in a year or 18 years. And yet, for some reason, these governments still think, oh yeah, we're going to be the difference because we're far more knowledgeable than everybody else before us that has ever existed. And no, you're not. It's a bit like that stupid phrase that someone said about 150 years ago. They're saying everything that has been invented, everything that can be invented has been invented. And he's clearly wrong, but yet that seems to be the same mentality that our current governments have. There's like, yeah, well, like, that was never true socialism, which means if I was to do it, I definitely do it correct, because I'm the oracle that knows everything and how every individual will act and should act and is happiest acting. That's utter bullshit. You've got no idea. I mean, clean your bloody room for starters. And if you can't do that, what makes you think you can organise millions of people? You can't do it. It just can't be done. So stop it, leave us alone, and stop your bullshit with these fucking lockdown draconian measures, which are entirely unnecessary. Yeah, you got cases rising. Wow. Hospitalizations, minimal. Deaths, barely worth mentioning. And yet, that is all they're bloody focused on. But that is how we are. So, put simply, say no to a second lockdown. It doesn't help. All it does is crushes the economy, which means it removes your spending power, which means it makes it more difficult for you to live and make your decisions and support your family and those you love. And when the lockdown is ended, you get a second wave or a third wave or a fourth wave. It's endemic. Learn to live with it. And as always, until next time, have a good one.